In this lecture, we're going to take a look at creating activities and adding intent filters to them so that these activities can be invoked from other activities, even in other programs. In previous lectures, we have explored assembling an app by assembling activities together, both activities that are inside our app with explicit intents, and also by pulling in modules from other applications or other libraries by using implicit intents. So, uh, with an implicit intent, we were able to invoke the camera very easily and get a picture in return. We were also able to invoke an image gallery and get an image in return without doing a whole lot of work because these modules have already been written. There's no need to use code to actually invoke the camera when we can just call an intent and have another program that was already written deal with turning the camera on, capturing an image, and returning an image to us. So, up to this point, we've looked at creating an app by tying together different intents. What we're going to look at this time is how we can write an activity and then open it up to the world so that other applications can invoke our activity by using an intent filter. So just a reminder before we left off last time, if I click on Find Specimen, I can then click on, we'll let the find invoke. I can then select an image, and this is going to go out and call the image gallery. Okay, and then what it will do is it's going to show me the images that I have on my emulator. Now I've moved up the screen a little bit because what's going to happen is when I click on this image, it's going to take us back to the calling activity, and it's going to pop up a toast, and I want you to be able to see that toast. So I select an image, and then it goes back, and there we go. It just shows me basically a relative path back to that image that I selected. So what we've seen here are several things. We saw our main activity, and then we're able to go to the Find Specimen screen by using an explicit intent, and we set that up in a previous recording. And then we're able to select an image using an implicit intent, and it pulls up this view of this image gallery, which is an external program that I'm just calling easily using an intent. Okay, so we have that, and that's nice. If I go to the live plant places, I'm going to run back to the home screen here, and I'm going to go to the Real Plant Places app. And one thing that I like about this app, not to sound too confident myself or anything, but one thing I like is the search by color. So I click on this. Whoops, looks like an ad came up there while I was clicking. I click on search by color, and what it will allow me to do is it will allow me to take a picture or open an existing image. No surprise here, it's using the same gallery view, although actually that I haven't put out and I haven't put that out, released that to the public yet, but I will soon. In any case, we click on a picture, and then what it will do is it will analyze this picture, and it will find the top 16 colors in this image. So, right now it's thinking it's doing that. I like that. And we use it now for plants, but the idea of a color analyzer like this is something that could probably be used in a lot of other applications. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie these two applications together. Okay? And here we go. Here are the top, roughly top 16 colors. Believe it or not, those are all different colors. They're all different shades of blue. Of course, I'm a bit disappointed it didn't pick out any of the pinks because that's what I really want. What it does is it will sample the entire image and then it will sample again in the center. And that center weighting might have set off some of the pinks. But nonetheless, we see that it's sampling the image. It's gathering some colors from it. And it's an entirely different application. And we know that because there are two different icons that are on the home screen. Okay, so we have, if I'll click to the home screen, we'll see here is the app that we're working on called FS131046 Plant Places. And then here's the Real Plant Places with the stylized P logo. Okay, so first things first, I have the Live Plant Places app. I have the Live Plant Places app here in Eclipse. And what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to open the Android manifest for this Plant Places app and tell it that I want to have it. Well, let me resize a bit here so we can get this all on one screen. Okay. I have to go into the Android manifest for the real plant places and say, okay, I want to open up that color search and let anybody use it. So what I need to do, and this won't look familiar because it is the live plant places, it's not the one we've been working on. That activity that does the color selection is called color capture activity. So I need to choose add, and what I'm going to add to this is an intent filter. Okay? And once I have the intent filter, I choose add again. And first I need an action. Now, so far, we've been using some predefined actions like the camera and also the image gallery. Here I'm making up my own action, so I'm going to choose OK. And I just need to give it a name, some kind of name that will be a string. I'll say com.plantplaces.color. Okay, what that means, I'll go ahead and choose save here. What that means is if there's an implicit intent that specifies this string, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it into the clipboard. If there's an implicit intent that specifies this string, it's going to look through intent filters and try to find that string. If it finds one, we may have a match. Now we also have to add something called a category, which is kind of like a second qualifier. Um, we can put some other criteria in here that could be used to select this activity, but at the very minimum we have to have default. If we don't want to specify any kind of secondary qualification, we have to say that this intent filter qualifies for the category called default. If we don't put that on there, it won't be able, this activity and the intent filter won't match up to any implicit intents. That sounds kind of weird, but basically when we specify an intent filter, we need to specify both an action and a category. Okay, we need to specify an action and a category. And if there's not a predefined category that we want to specify, we'll just go with default. We'll just go with the default option. So I'll hit save. This is a UI builder. But if we look at the manifest under the covers, okay, we can look at the XML that was created. Here's what was created. Okay, this activity already existed, the color capture activity. That's the one that does the analyze the picture. Okay, that activity already exists. What we added was this intent filter. By clicking all those buttons, we could type this in ourselves if we want, or we could let the Android XML, the Android Manifest XML, let that little GUI wizard do it for us. Might as well let them do the work. So the string is just a string that I made up, but I'm going to need to remember that string. And then the default category, which says I don't need to specify a second qualifier, so I'm just going to run with default. Okay. So that's all the changes I'm going to make to the plantplaces.com app. What I'm going to do now is Control M, and I'm going to return to the app that we have been working on. Okay, I'm going to go up to Plant Search Activity. Actually, let's take a step back. Let's start with the layout called Advanced Search. Okay, and we're running really, it's kind of hard to see because we have so many scroll bars and windows. I'm going to Control M, select an image. I'm going to remember how we have this set up. I go to Other Properties, and then I'm going to go to Recent On Click, and we see that the On Click is set to On Select and Image. On Select and Image. So when this Select an Image button is pressed, it's going to go back to the matching. Oops, sorry, there's one thing I need to do here. When that is pressed, it's going to go back to the matching. Control M. The method which matches that name on the matching activity. So plant search activity is wired up to the layout we were just looking at. And we know that because if we look at the on create, we see that the set content view is wired up to that layout. Okay, 1 second please. Okay, occasionally when I'm recording, the screen capture I can't see it. I want to make sure it's still recording. So in any case, set content view, there we go. That's right up to our layout. So what we need to find now is, it was called on select an image, right? So that's going to go off, and that's going to invoke the image gallery. Okay? Now, when the image gallery comes back, it's going to invoke on activity result. On activity result. Okay? So, what I'm going to do now is here's the toast that we have so far. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up an implicit intent. Okay, let me put some comments here. Okay, get the URI, Universal Resource Identifier, of the image that the user selected. Okay, and now we're going to say use an implicit intent to invoke the image color analyzer, if that makes sense. For this, I simply, let me scroll over, give us a little more room to see here. For this, I simply create an intent object, intent color intent equals new intent. Okay, now here's where I pass that string in. Remember I said I just made up that string called com.plantplaces.color? Here's where I pass that string in. Boom. Now what I'll do is I'll say, we can just say start activity. Okay, and we'll say color intent. Okay. Okay. And there we go. At this point, we don't need to worry about that toast anymore, do we? Because what it should do is it should just automatically redirect to our plant places intent. One trick is we haven't sent the file across, so it's just going to pull up that blank screen. We haven't sent the file across. We're just kind of working through an example to see that we can invoke an activity of one application from another application. So Control M. Now the caveat here is that either there has to be something installed on the emulator that can handle this intent request we have. There has to be something on the emulator that knows what com.plantplaces.color is. Okay, if this is something we've made up, then we're going to need to make sure that that's already installed. So what I do is I click on the Plant Places Android project, and if I just choose Run, Plant Search Activity. Uh-oh. Not sure if I want to do that. Okay. That's the one I was just working on. That's fine. Yeah, okay. I'm going to right click and choose Run. And what that will do is that will go ahead and install any changes I might have made in this onto the emulator. I'll go ahead and tell it to use the emulator that's running right now. Okay, that's going to take those manifest changes that we made and install them on the emulator. Okay, so there we go. We'll let that run. We'll let that run in the background. Meanwhile, another thing that's probably a good idea if we have a tightly coupled project is to make it a build path requirement. So if I right click on the project we're working on, FS131046 Plant Places, I'm going to right click and choose build path and configure build path. Next, I've already done this. I did this before our recording. I go to projects and I choose add, and I look at the other projects that are in my Eclipse, and I select Plant Places Android. So I'm setting up a dependency between these two. So that's oftentimes a good idea if we do have a hard dependency between two projects. Okay, so I look in the console window, and I can see if I can get an idea if Plant Places, the big Plant Places I set to run. Yep, there we go. So we see that the Plant Places app has been installed successfully on the emulator, and that includes those changes, the intent filter changes to the Android manifest. Now that I know that's been installed, I can go ahead and I can debug the FS131046 Plant Places app, the one we're working on. I can debug that knowing that the required Plant Places project, the other Plant Places project, has been successfully installed on the emulator. So I choose debug here, and what this should eventually do is bring up the FS131046 project that we've been working on, and we'll watch what happens. Okay, it's loading now, so I'll give it a few moments to load. Okay, didn't take too long. The first screen that's coming up now for our FS 131046 Plant Places project. Okay, and I'm going to choose Find Specimen. Okay, and hit a breakpoint here. Looks like I have a breakpoint that's running, so I will go ahead and play through this one. Yeah, I don't think we need that. That was from the last time we had, that was from our last recorded session. So I can go ahead and toggle this breakpoint off. I don't think we need it anymore. But what you see here is we have an explicit intent because we're telling it explicitly which activity we want to call. I'll go ahead and choose play and let it play through that. Okay, so it's going to pull up our advanced search screen. Okay, and here we are in our advanced search screen. It's on the onCreate method, which means it's creating the activity and associating the layout with it. So it's a little bit slow right now, but what I'm going to try and do is just tell it to play through. Okay, we got it. It'll take just a few more moments, and there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit select an image. Okay, and this is the implicit intent that goes out and calls the gallery view. I'll click one of my, that's a red bud flower. And what we should see here is this will be interesting. If everything worked out well, there we go. Take a look at that. In a blink of an eye, it has gone from our application that we've written, the 1046 application, the one that we're writing, to the real plant places application. And you can tell, you can see the background's a bit different. So it just wired from one application to another. Now, what would be neat is if there was some way we could tell the plant places application the image that we want it to interpret so that we don't have to click on open existing image yet again. And as luck would have it, we can do that. I'm going to go back to Java View, and I'm going to go to, again, this is the real plant places, the live plant places. I'm going to go to the color capture activity, and I'm going to Control M so we can focus in on this. And what we'll see is there is an option in the color capture activity. It looks in something called extras. It looks for a string with this image file name constant. Okay, so bundle extras equals this dot get intent dot get extras, and then what it's looking for is a string that's mapped to this name. Okay, that probably doesn't make any sense if you haven't heard of a bundle before. Basically, a bundle is a set of data that can be sent from one activity to another. Okay, it's a set of name value pairs that can be sent from one activity to another. What we're doing here is we're specifying image file name as the name, and the value will be whatever the file path is to that image. So let's see what image file name is. I'm going to click on this and see if I can find a string. Okay, it just happens to be something called image file name. Okay, now I'm going to Alt left arrow, which will take me back and hopefully take me where I want to go. There we go. Okay, so it's looking for a string associated with image file name, and it's assuming that that string is going to be a file location of an image that the user selected. Okay, so I go back to plant search activity, and here's what I'm going to do. It'll take just a moment. Okay, on the plant search activity. Okay, on the on activity result, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, we don't need that toast anymore. I'm going to associate this URI value with a name. Okay, we'll say bundle extra equals new bundle. I think I got that right. Okay, extra dot set, sorry, put string. Okay, we have our key, which is that string I copied from the real plant places app. And then the value is going to be the string value of this picture path. So picture path. It's probably going to be mad at me. Probably what I'll need to do is invoke .toString. Now, I will warn you one thing here. I haven't worked through this example before, so it might not work exactly as planned, but we'll see. It might not work exactly as planned, but we get the idea. Oh, sorry, one second. We see that what we can do. Oh, happen again. Okay. Screencast-O-Matic, it's a little bit tricky sometimes. Works very well, but occasionally when I click on something, it will take this little recording box and move it somewhere else. So I have to bring it back into focus, make sure the mic's still on. So what we see is that we can call an activity from a different application, and we can pass data to it. So what I'm going to do is on this color intent, I'm going to say color intent dot add put extras. There we go. Okay. Sorry, extra. And if all works well, there we go. So what I'm doing is not only am I calling an implicit intent here, but I'm passing it data in a name, value, pair. Okay. Name is kind of like a key, so you could say key value pair if you prefer. Key is image file name. Value is the string path of that image. Okay? And I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to Control M, and I'm going to tell it that I want to debug this now, and we'll see if it actually pulls up the image. Debug as Android application. So what that's going to do is that's going to go back and refresh my emulator, and we'll see if it is able to pull up the image directly in the live Plant Places mobile. Okay, our app is rendered again, so I'm going to choose Find Specimen. And looks like a breakpoint's hitting here. I thought I turned that one off, but maybe not. Let me, oh, I see. It's one other breakpoint. Okay, it's bringing up the Find Specimen screen. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this breakpoint. One second. Oops, almost had it there. Well, I'll tell you what. We will toggle breakpoint, and then we're going to hit play. I'm turning the breakpoint off just because we've seen it before. We saw that in a previous recording. Okay, so toggle the breakpoint off, and then hit play. And we'll go ahead and do select an image. And it brings up gallery view. We click the image, and cross your fingers here. If all works well, it should show this image in our well, I got an error message. It wasn't able to show the image, but listen, that was a bit of a calculated risk, but it might be just a matter of how the emulator works. But nonetheless, what we've seen, quick review of what we've seen that we can have one Android application invoke an activity in another Android application. And the rules are the destination Android application, where we have Android manifest, we have to set up an intent filter. We have to give that intent filter an action, which is a string usually. There are some predefined actions, or we can make our own. But in this case, I gave it just a solid string. Also, we need to give it a category, which is kind of like a second qualifier. If we don't need a second qualifier, then we must give it the category called default. So we have to give it the category called default. If it has at least an action in a category, then our activity can receive requests from other applications. So we saw that number one. Number two, even though it didn't work exactly as planned, we did see, let's see, I think it was plant search activity. There we go. We did see that we have this thing called a bundle. And a bundle is basically a big grouping of name value pairs. So the name here is a string, and then a value is a path to the picture. And we can take that bundle and we can pass it into our activity as additional information, even if that activity is in a completely different Android application or in a library. So that's a look at the other side of intents, which is how to set up an intent filter so that your application can receive information can receive requests from other applications. There's a lot of value here. Maybe you want to make some library stuff. Maybe you have something like the color interpreter or something that you want to make available to the rest of the world, either for free as an open source project or maybe for sale. A lot of things here. If you like doing that kind of library function stuff where you can make something available to the world, maybe you have a better way of interacting with the phone than existing libraries. So you can make a library like this, give it an intent filter, an action, a category, other data if you wish, and there you go. Interesting concept. So that's all for this presentation. In the next presentation, we're going to take a look at images themselves and what kind of things we can do with images. After that, we're going to take a look at services and the Android lifecycle, and we'll see how those two play together and how important it is to make sure that you're turning services off when you go to a pause state, and then you turn them back on when you go to a resume state. Thank you.